Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Mustardcast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. And in a few days, it'll be our 3 year anniversary. On September 23rd, 3 years ago, we started this podcast. So I'm having some special art made by a friend of mine who's been on the podcast, I think, a couple times, my friend Eric. So, yeah, as
Very
usual,
exciting. Very exciting.
start with media we're consuming. So what you been consuming out here?
Okay, so I was on vacation this past weekend. And while I didn't get to watch all of the things that I had on my list, I did watch and consume a couple things. So first and foremost, I went to see Bottoms in the theater. Really liked it, but I'll talk more about that during the film section. Um, Watched more episodes of the One Piece live action, about two more. Got the Sanji. I really like Sanji. I like Sanji a lot. What else? Watch more Fiona and Cake. Talk about that a little bit more later. And that's about it. Did a lot of watching this weekend. Mostly bottoms in One Piece are my big highlights though.
Yeah, I've been. I'm gonna wait for Bottoms to hit streaming before I watch it. It's just not a movie
Real,
that
real.
I want to see in theaters,
That's real.
but I hear it's good, so I'll check it out when it hits streaming. For me, um, MK1 came out earlier than I thought. I didn't realize that it came out on the 14th, September 14th, for people who got the premium edition like I did. So, um, I played through the entirety story mode. I'll talk about that at the very end of the podcast. I started playing Metal Gear Solid 4 because I just couldn't wait for the Master Collection. I was gonna wait till Master Collection came out and played MGS 1 before replaying MGS 4, but I plugged up my mom's friend's PS3, put that disc in there, and it loads faster than I remember it being. Than I remember it loading, um, and I, and I think it's because I might have had it set to download the entire game all at once, which I realize I'm starting to understand why it is stuck on the PS3 architecture because it loads individual acts of the or yeah I think they're called acts or chapters something like that of the game in between them, and it takes like 4 minutes each time. The first install was the longest at like 8 minutes, but the install between chapters is like 4 minutes, and I was like, oh, that's actually really clever, so that you either can, if you have the time, like you're doing something while it's downloading, you could download the whole thing and it'll take a while, or you can download it in between each chapter, which is really cool. And even then, I still
Yeah.
feel like it does it faster than it did when I first played it, which makes sense. They probably optimized it over the years since I've last played it.
Hmm.
uh I saw Mutant Mayhem again, for finally a second time. Still
Mhm.
good. um I've so I thought it wouldn't be in theaters anymore, but because I don't know why time has felt weird the past month. I don't know if that's just me, but I think it's because this movie came out at the very beginning of August. It came out August 2nd, so to me,
Right.
it's felt like it's been out longer than it actually has been. So it does make sense that it's still in theaters. But what's weird is that it's been what, a little over a month since it's been out. Well, I guess a month and a half, and it's out on digital already, and so is Barbie. And
Hmm.
this is the I think it's the first time I've seen where a movie is still in theaters and also out digitally, which I think is
Right.
something that should be done more often. Movies already come out within 2 months of on digital after it's come out in theaters, which is great for people who just don't have the money for theaters or just don't care for theaters.
Right.
But I'm glad that they still stay in theaters even after they come out digitally. That way, people who didn't get a chance to see it early on still have a chance to see it later.
Yeah. Theater experience is very unique.
I also
Nice thing.
watched this movie called The Nice Guys, starring Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. It was really funny. It's an action comedy about this private detective who has to find this girl who stumbled upon like some government conspiracy theory. Um,
Mhm.
it was really good. Um, I also watched 1917, which is I think it's a World War One or two war movie that
Mhm.
they like simulate, like it takes place in one continuous shot. Obviously, they didn't literally film it in one continuous shot. They added some clever cuts that you just can't notice the seams unless you're really looking for them.
Oh.
So it just looks like you're just following them the whole time. There's one cut for the sake of kind of pushing the time forward so that the movie isn't 9 hours long. But other than that, there aren't any other cuts.
That's cool.
Rewatched John Wick 4 for a second time. It's a long movie, so I didn't watch it more than once in theaters. But man, that movie is so good. It was even better second time. John Wick is just one of the best action franchises ever. It's ridiculous how good John Wick is. If you just want pure action, John Wick is great. John Wick 3, Parabellum is still my favorite one. Still watching Ahsoka. Ahsoka's real good. Talk about that later. Watching Spy Family, JJK, and Bleach, and was his in terms of anime. All of them still good, real good. I'm trying to finish up Spy Family, the first season, and JJK and Bleach and Zom are still ongoing. I'm confused about Zom's release schedule because it's supposed to release Sunday, but then every time I check, it's not there, and I'm like, okay, what time? And I think it just comes out later in the day, and also that they
Probably, yeah.
that they upload episodes every other week, which is weird. They're on a really weird release schedule with that I always just randomly in the middle of the week check to see if it's up, and it is.
Right.
But I know it comes out on Sundays, so I don't know. It's weird.
Right.
Yeah, Bleach, still great. I love Bleach. It's so good. This season is amazing. Fiona Cake, we'll talk about that. I also talk about Harley Quinn since the season's wrapped up. Still rewatching Batman the Animated Series. I'm in the middle of season 2. Last episode I watched was the Bane episode, which Bane is my favorite Batman villain. So, finishing up Batman Beyond as well. And Batman Beyond, like 98% of the villains are original characters made for Batman Beyond, and
Really?
they're all great. And I think that superhero media outside of comics forget that they can do that. Like, they can make brand new characters. They don't have to take old characters and change them to the point to where they're something completely different. Like
Feels like a jab at My Adventures of Superman.
like that one cartoon. Like, you can just make new characters. It's okay. Like, some of the most popular characters have just been new characters, like Harley Quinn. But speaking of which, since My Adventure with Superman ended, I've replaced it in my schedule with Superman the Anime Series. I'm gonna watch an episode every Friday. I didn't watch one last Friday because I was just busy. But yeah, last episode I watched was coincidentally a Livewire and Parasite episode. And Estes Parasite also gains the powers of the people whose energy he absorbs, which I feel like makes me even more upset about the version in My Adventures with Superman, because it's like, I talked about how it's made by Dr. Ivo, who in the comics his claim to fame is making a robot called the Mazo that takes superheroes' powers, and it turns out there are versions of Parasite that also steals powers and memories alongside the energy absorption. So my idea of Parasite, him not being the person to wear a Parasite suit, instead having someone else test it and then after it, Superman takes it down, builds a better version of it that doesn't require human and doesn't require physical touch, and calling it the Amazo robot. This makes my idea work even better, because there are versions of Parasite that essentially are like Amazo. So they could have had Amazo be a 0.10 of what eventually becomes the thing that Ivo is known for, rather than having him make something that has nothing to do with him.
Right.
But again, who knows what they'll do with season 2? There, a lot of changes could be made to these villains. Maybe they'll hear the feedback and go, maybe we should, bring these characters a little bit more in line with their original versions instead of making them completely different characters. And despite these changes, the version of Ivo from that show is fun, even though it's a little strange. I also came up with an even more detailed idea for giving Silver Banshee more of her powers from the comics in My Adventures with Superman. My idea before was that she gets caught in a phantom zone projector explosion and gains the ability to phase through objects. But what if she also gets the ability to turn invisible? Because her brother has the tech that turns him invisible in the show. So what if the explosion is an accident and they're both caught in it and presumed dead, but actually they're both sent into the phantom zone? And in the explosion, Banshee absorbs the abilities of both of their tech, giving her the sonic scream permanently and invisibility powers permanently, plus the ability to shift between the Phantom Zone and Earth, which she uses to make it seem like she's phasing through things, but she's actually sending parts of her body back into the Phantom Zone. And there's actually a really popular character in a really popular anime that does that exact same thing. That gave me the idea. But yeah, then she would be more ghost-like, more banshee-like.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have for that. Moving on to animation. Harley Quinn season 4 has ended. And yeah, man, this show has it's gotten worse, honestly. I like the first 2 seasons a lot. Last 2 seasons haven't really been hidden. I don't know, man. I struggle to really pinpoint what it is. It just feels like there isn't as much of like, I don't know, the conflicts all feel artificial, and just I don't really care for the kind of struggles they're going through for the most part. It's very strange. In the finale, they randomly formed the infamous Gotham City Sirens, which is a team consisting of Harley, Ivy, and Catwoman from the comics. But for some reason, they decided to throw in Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, who at the end of the season was shot by the Joker like she was in comics and paralyzed from the waist down, becoming Oracle. And my question is, why is she there? They even the reason I say that is because they make a joke, which is a clear reference back to the movie Birds of Prey, starring Harley Quinn, which the Birds of Prey in the comics is an all-woman superhero team, which Oracle is a part of. It's her, Black Canary, and Huntress, of which Black Canary and Huntress shows up in that movie. Batgirl doesn't. And it's not a Birds of Prey movie at all. The only 2 Birds of Prey that are in the movie, one of them is barely in a movie. The other one isn't one of the main characters, really. It's a Harley Quinn movie. Like, literally halfway through them advertising the movie, they changed the title to Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of Harley Quinn, because they knew this is a Harley Quinn movie. Why are we calling this Birds of Prey? And they're kind of poking fun out of it by having the one member of the Birds of Prey that didn't show up in the movie titled Birds of Prey become a member of the Gotham City Sirens, which that Harley Quinn movie should have been. Rather than having Black Canary and Huntress, it should have had Poison Ivy and Catwoman, both people who are very instrumental to her, character development, and have it be Gotham City Sirens. It's that movie. It's honestly, it's a good movie, and I feel that way about I feel the same way about that movie. Pretty much the exact same way about that movie that I feel about My Adventure with Superman. Everything about it is good, except they make some really weird choices about changing characters in really weird ways. It's weird. I just don't understand why they do these things. But moving on to Castlevania Nocturne. Have you seen the second trailer?
Yes, I have, and I'm so excited.
It comes out so soon.
I know.
By next episode, we'll probably be talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they have Castlevania music, at least one song. I think this is literally the only Castlevania song they're gonna have in the entire series. But good God,
in the original.
No, I'm talking about in this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They had a honestly not that good cover of Bloody Tears in the second season. I was honestly extremely disappointed. But this cover of Divine Bloodlines has 2 things that Bloody Tears lacked that I think would have elevated, which is a guitar and a choir. That is all Bloody Tears needed to make it better. Any version of Bloody Tears without a guitar just doesn't hit as hard for me. And I'm so glad that they have a guitar in this Divine Bloodlines kind of remix. Yeah, the music's real good. The music was real good in the first trailer too. Yeah. But a synopsis for the season is that Netflix takes us back to the world of Castlevania and the latest Belmont to slay vampires. Castlevania Nocturne takes us to the French Revolution. But yeah, there was this Netflix video that had an interview with Sam and Adam Dietz, who are the directors on the entire series, the original as well. The showrunner Kevin Colday and character design supervisor Katie Silva, and they were talking about expanding the world to a completely different time period, hundreds of years after the original series, and how they took like the influences from the from the games, specifically Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night.
Ooh.
And yeah, and they talked about, of course, getting being able to use divine bloodlines in the game. Excuse me, the show. And also talked about the new characters and their designs. But yeah, this comes out the 28th. So yeah, I for some reason I thought this came out like the 30th. So it comes out 28th. So yeah, we'll definitely be talking about this next episode.
Yep. I hope we get. It's wishful thinking, but I hope we get. Since we got the one song, I hope we get a Vampire Killer, or at least a reference to it.
Yeah.
It's like Bloody Tears is iconic, but Vampire Killer is my favorite.
Yeah, if it was possible, I hope they get at least one song every season.
Yeah.
So for the second season, I mean, I don't know. Second season, they might be going the Symphony of the Night route. So maybe instead they'll have what is that one song that's associated with Alucard? Is it called like Dracula's Son or something like that?
I think it's something like that.
It's something like that.
Hey, if we go a Symphony of the Night route, I'm all for it because that one's my favorite Castlevania game. That and I think Eclipse of the Moon. I think it's called one of the ones on the GBA. I know that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for this. It looks good. It looks like it'll be great. I hope the pacing's good because that's the only thing about Castlevania that wasn't great throughout the series was the pacing as the series went on got worse. It got better in the last season, but the pacing can be strange sometimes. So I hope the pacing is really good this time and that it's not too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to Fiona Cake. You said you saw how many more episodes?
Probably like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the theory I had was immediately like revealed. And which episode did you get to?
Episode 5, I want to say. I watched it like sometime last week, and
because all the episodes are like named after a character. You know what character is named after?
Don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be so real.
Oh, did you get to the Prismo episode?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's all I need to know. So my theory that I didn't get to talk about the last episode was that I felt like the Fiona and Cake's world was normal now because Simon is now normal, and they pretty much revealed that, and that is exactly what happened in the Prismo episode. But they also revealed that Prismo was actually the person that created Fiona and Cake's universe, not the Ice King, which is very interesting. And that Prismo was the one making the fan fiction and just beamed it into the Ice King's head, and Ice King wrote books about it and sold them, and they became really popular. And I like how Finn was like, who was at first weirded out about it back in the show. It's kind of like, yeah, they grew on me, man. But yeah, unfortunately, Prismo is no longer voiced by Kumail Nanjiani, who wanted to return to the role, but apparently his representatives turned it down without letting him know. And apparently that is a big problem in Hollywood. That apparently they just thought it was beneath him since he's become so famous. Because it was a children's cartoon, I guess. They were like, no, you don't need to act in this children's cartoon, even though he really wanted to do it because he likes Adventure Time.
Yeah. He is Prismo. Like, it's so strange. I saw the whole thread on Twitter. I was like, that's just absurd.
It's just ridiculous that representatives would turn down roles for the actor instead of going to them, letting them know about it. It's so weird.
Especially right now when we're in like a
strike.
The whole yeah, it's like you would think an actor would want all the roles they can get, cartoon or not. It feels very, I don't know. It gave me a huge ick.
Yeah. But yeah, did you get to the episode after Prismo? Because I think Prismo was the 4th episode. Because they released 2 episodes at a week, which I was not expecting. Like I finished watching episode 3, and then I was like, oh, well, that's it. And then I like clicked back button on my remote, and then I went down, and it said there was another episode. I was like, what?
Before we real. My memory's a little foggy. I don't think I did.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
What's about the rest next time? The last episode was real good. There was some musical stuff. It was great.
Ooh, exciting.
But moving on to comics. Read I think the 2nd issue of World's Finest Teen Titans. The Titans go and help a kid who has unlocked their psychic abilities, and are helping them control them. Night Terrors, The Flash #2. The art by Daniel Bayliss continues to be incredible and very creepy as the Flash tries to as he's stuck in this nightmare where he's trying to save Kid Flash from dying, and as he's doing so, he's being transformed into this monster. It's a very good issue. Superman 2023 annual. This annual actually focuses a lot on Lois Lane and the reporters at the Daily Planet. Superman literally doesn't show up till the very end. And she struggles with her new position as editor-in-chief, while the previous chief is running for mayor, Perry White.
Interesting.
So it's very cool. And she actually gave Livewire a job as like a podcast host for the Daily Planet, which is like, I'll never stop complaining. I'm telling you, until change happens. I'll never stop complaining about what they did to Livewire in that show.
I know.
I thought I would stop, but it's always in the back of my mind whenever the word Superman leaves my mouth.
You're like, I'll never forget what they did to you. You're real though. You're so real.
But Steel Works, the OG Steel, John Henry Irons, is attempting to create a metropolis that no longer needs the Superman family, and that puts him at odds with the second Steel, his niece, Natasha Irons, and the younger members of the Super Fam. Mm-hmm. And, of course, like superhero comics go, there's some villains in the background who are trying to get revenge on him for stopping them from doing crime, which is like, bruh, that's your fault. What would you need revenge for? That's on you.
Nobody told you to do crime.
But Spirit World, Xanthi and Constantine have finally caught up with Batgirl in the Spirit World, but now they have to deal with an entity called the Collective that's been absorbing innocent souls.
Concerning.
Yeah, I finally finished Black Adam, and it was real good. I see why people love Christopher Priest. Christopher Priest is known for being really good at writing people of color. So good that people think he's black when he's not. He's actually white. I thought he was black for a very long time as well, until somebody on Twitter was like, "No, he's white," and I was like, "Oh, I thought this man was black." It's like what's the name of the singer that sings "What You Want to Do for Love"? Bobby Caldwell.
Yeah.
even his name that just sounds like a black man. Bobby Caldwell.
For real.
Christopher Priest is the Bobby Caldwell of comics. But Radiant Black, a new arc has begun with 2 issues that are actually, there's an A issue and a B issue because it splits off into 2 different versions. Where the Radiant Black, yeah, that's what it's called, I guess. They're called Radiants, and this is the black one. Was used by 2 separate people. One of them ended up in a coma at one point, and then the other person picked it up. But now they've both been using it, and now only one of them can use it for them to use it at its full power. So there's an issue where one person gets it, where the entire issue is pretty much the exact same, except the last couple pages where the person who gets it changes and the conversation they have about it changes.
Gotcha.
I'm interested to see what that goes. If they're gonna continue with this branchy timeline, or if they're gonna move forward with only one person, because there was a poll to choose, and I chose the original person who got the Radiant. But then I think somewhere on like their social media they said both of them got it, and I was like, "What? What do you mean? What's happening?" So I guess we'll see.
Choose your own adventure comic book. I love to see it.
Yeah, they're in the middle of an alien invasion arc that spans across the entire massive universe, which I haven't read. Well, the only other massive universe comics I read are the other Radiant comics, which have all been shorter stories of like 6 issues or less than that. Sometimes I read Radiant Red, which was easily the best one. Radiant Red was low-key even better than Radiant Black.
Oh wow,
I want more Radiant Red. Radiant Red was great. Radiant and Radiant Pink. There hasn't been a Radiant Yellow comic yet, and I'm sure if they don't do this weird thing where there's 2 versions of the story with one of them, both of them having Radiant Black, I feel like they're eventually going to introduce like Radiant Blue or Radiant Green, like the Sixth Ranger that comes in, and one of them becomes that Radiant. So we'll see. That's probably exactly what's gonna happen. But yeah, I've been reading The Eternals by Kieran Gillen. So I don't read much Marvel comics except Spider-Man and Daredevil, which I've been reading both Spider-Man and Daredevil. But the reason I didn't add them to this episode is because I have been talking about comics for a while now, because I've been reading a lot of comics, so I pushed it to the next episode. So you'll hear me talk about some really good Spider-Man Daredevil comics next episode. But The Eternals, I like the movie a lot. Some people don't, because it's different. Some people don't like it because of how different it is. Some people don't like it because they feel like there are too many characters and not enough time to get to know them all, and that's fair. It honestly should have been a show or split into two parts, but I like the movie a lot because of how different it was. Because I'm tired of art. The biggest thing, the reason quote unquote Marvel fatigue exists is because they're they're all the same. It's not that people are tired of superhero movies; it's that people are tired of the same movie over and over again. And Eternal was something different, so I liked it a lot. And I really, my favorite side of the MCU is and just Marvel in general, even in the comics, is the cosmic side, and it's the cosmic side and the street level side. So I like Spider Man, I like Daredevil, and I like Thor. In the comics, I like Thor, and now I'm starting to really love the Eternals because Kieran Gillen's Eternals run is really good, and the art by Asad Ribic is also great. And coincidentally, Asad Ribic also drew the first not the first arc, but the Thor the God Butcher arc of Thor, which is fantastic.
Right.
But yeah, Thor has slowly been becoming my like third most read Marvel character after Spider-Man and Daredevil, low key.
Oh wow.
And the Eternals are a very interesting group of cosmic characters, and yeah, I'm excited to read more of it. I read the first volume so far, and yeah, the reason I decided to read it is because I saw that Kieran Gillen wrote it, and Kieran Gillen is incredible. Kieran Gillen writes this comic called Die, as in both death and a dice, and it's about a role playing game. It's basically a dark fantasy Jumanji, where these kids get sucked into a D&D game by these magical dice. But that's not where the story starts. They come out of the game like a year afterwards or something like that. But one of them's missing. And the real story takes place 20 years later when they go back into the game to save their friend that they left behind.
Gotcha. Didn't they end up turning it into like an actual tabletop?
They did.
Did. I remember seeing the ads for it and wanting to play it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was based on a comic.
Yeah, Die is really good. I would definitely suggest it.
Check it out.
But last but not least, Fables by Bill Willingham has been released into public domain.
I heard about that.
So now the mass public have the rights to create fables, movies, cartoons, books, and more, which is dope. But also, it's like kind of it makes sense because a lot of these characters. The reason Bill Willingham was even able to make this is because the characters he were using were all in public domain to begin with. Right. So in a way, it's like, does it really matter that that Fables is in public domain when all of these characters are already characters that exist in public domain, and anybody could have made their own kind of version of something like Fables already? So is it truly that big of a deal?
I feel it's less of a big of a deal because of like, you know, they're already public domain characters, so it doesn't really matter in the end. I feel like, to me, it's a big deal because it's like he did it of his own accord.
Yeah.
And I forgot exactly why it happened, but I know it was something to do with like his publishers or something along those lines.
Yeah, but that also means he could do whatever he wants to. But also, when things go into public domain, of course, that still means the like Fables comic is still under, like, that's DC's and WB's. Like, people can't just do stuff with that. Same thing with the Wolf Among Us. Like, when things go into public domain, like, you still can't use the Disney, specifically the Disney version of Winnie the Pooh. You can't do that, but you can make your own version of Winnie the Pooh that changes things about them. Like that weird horror movie that I like muted it on Twitter because I was like, I don't need this in my life. Here's the thing I feel about putting things in public domain. Some people would argue that superheroes like Superman and characters that have been around for almost 100 years should go into public domain. No, absolutely not. Because I don't want to see these characters go into public domain as much as I hate Disney and WB, because people are just going to do weird stuff with them that I don't want to see, and I prefer them to be protected behind the big corporation. Because people are going to do some weird stuff, and I just don't want to see it. I don't want a Superman horror movie. We already have Brightburn and The Boys for that. I don't need more of that. I already don't like those things, and I don't need to see anything like that with Spider-Man or Wolverine or Daredevil or anything like that. Like, leave those characters alone. I don't need everything to go into public domain because it's going to get real weird real fast, and I'm not with it.
Me personally, I can I want Mickey Mouse to go into the public domain because I just want to see all, like, I'm a fan of the weird just to see how, like, absolutely god awful it can get. It's so funny watching, like, something go into the public domain and then just everything crashing and burning afterwards, like what happened to The Great Gatsby. Not even a day after it became public domain, I found the entire thing, like the entire novel, posted on Archive of Our Own, unchanged, and It's just like it's very silly. It's very silly.
Yeah, to me, there is just too many bad things that could happen. I'm not with it.
That's real. That's real.
You have any comic book things before you move on?
Not really. It's like a half thing. I started a you reminded me in things that I started a analysis reread of Trigun Maximum, and first of all, I'm real hurt because it's like reading it after having read it already. It's like the foreshadowing, but also I'm like since it's an analysis reread, my gallery is full of screenshots. I'm putting together like a PowerPoint. It's insane, and like I got to I think I'm on volume 4, I want to say, whichever one Mid Valley is introduced in. And I'm realizing now that like this analysis is going to be like just absolutely insane because it's like there's so much character work, especially with Vash, and it's like all very tiny things that like you don't notice on your first read, but then when you're rereading through, it's like, oh, this tiny thing that happens a lot is really, really deliberate, and it's like the contrast between that and then like when I've read a couple interviews from Naito and like they'll ask why does XYZ happen, and he'll go, I don't know, I just thought it was cool, and it's like how much of that is him playing up a part and how much of that is like genuine, I just kind of did it because it happened that way, and it'll plague me forever, but that's all I've got.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I'm just realizing that we'll also have Scott Pilgrim will be out by
Oh
the
yeah.
next time we record as well. So we have a lot of cartoons to talk about.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, moving on to TV and film, there was a trailer for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, directed by James Wan again, and it looks really good. The first, did you check out the trailer?
I did.
Okay, the first movie was one of my favorite DCU movies. It's just a really fun time of exploring the world and these really good. Just the world building is great. Atlantis and the underwater is just great. I really want an Aquaman video game so bad. Like just imagine a
Mm,
video game where it mostly takes place underwater, and sometimes you
big.
can go up to the surface and like stop crimes and stuff, and maybe land on islands and stuff, and maybe small cities. But man, Aquaman game would be really fun.
It would be. I just my biggest concern probably would be the controls because it's uh, underwater controls have gotten better in video games gradually, but there's still a little bit of struggle there.
Yeah,
So I
but
feel like
in a game where it that's like the main thing is being underwater, they would have to make something great.
yeah,
One day we'll get an Aquaman game. Like,
go from the subnautica school of underwater controls. The game controls great.
yeah. But yeah, Black Manta has graduated to main villain for this one, and I just love villains who are just haters. Villains who wake up early in the morning so that they have extra time to hate. Oh boy, and Black Manta is one of the biggest haters in comic book history, man. One time, this man thought Aquaman was dead, so he retired. He went and started a fish market on some Caribbean island. He was chilling, and then as he's in the market, doing his job, he sees on the news Aquaman is alive, and he immediately murders everyone in his store,
Mm-mm.
then walks into the ocean, and then walks back out of the ocean. It's fully suited up, prepared to go throw hands with Aquaman again. That man is a tier 1 hater.
Peak hating. I love it though.
The only hater bigger than him in comics is the Reverse Flash. Look, when you have the ability to manipulate time, the ways you can hate are elevated tenfold.
So for real.
This man, Reverse Flash, finds very creative ways to be a hater. And I love everything about it. I just love characters that hate. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. It looks good. The visuals look spectacular, like they were in the first one. The action looks great. No, it's gonna be a good time. Um, they still do comic recommendations at the end of their trailers, which I love, and I might read a few myself. Specifically the New 52 Aquaman run, because I haven't really read any. I haven't read many Aquaman comics. I can't say I haven't read any, because I read Future State Aquaman, which is so good. It's I think it's only 1 or 2 issues, and it's like standalone, so you could just jump into it and read it, and that by itself is enough. It stars the second Aqualad, who is in that comic is Aquaman. Well, currently in comics he's also Aquaman, but this takes place in the future, so he's been Aquaman for a while, and his sidekick is the original Aquaman's daughter. And it's really about kind of their sibling relationship. It's a really good comic. I also read the comic where he becomes Aquaman, Aquaman the Becoming, and also read the Black Manta comic that ties into that, as well as what is it, Aquaman Andromeda, which was the kind of horror-ish, Aquaman comic that we talked about a while ago. And I'm still in the middle of reading the current Aquaman run the Aquaman, which is called, because it's starring both Aquaman and Black Manta. So yeah, I need to finish that up. I've just been slowly reading that. I've just been reading so many other comic books that I haven't gotten around to finishing it, and it also got canceled at some point. And I'm like, man, let Aquaman have these comics. I'll bet after this movie comes out and it makes another $1 billion, they're gonna bring back those Aquaman comics. But moving on to One Piece.
Yeah, it's One Piece.
So you got to the Sanji episodes. Well, that means
I did.
That means you also saw the Usopp episodes in full.
I did. First of all, I love Usopp. He's great. Very silly. I would die for him. But Sanji. I had heard a lot about Sanji before I watched his episodes. And a lot of good things, couple bad things. So I was like, I went in with like a mixed opinion because I'm like, all my friends are hyping up Sanji, but they also have the worst tasting characters ever.
How so?
So I'm like, just very, very questionable taste in previous characters from other media.
Like they like Ahsoka?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say that bad. But definitely some questionable taste. So
Ahsoka,
like,
the fight sexual?
Man, I don't know. If I had friends with character taste that bad, I don't know. I don't think we'd be friends anymore.
Like, Ahsoka's a fun villain, but he sucks. He's
really
so
gross.
Weird. And I hate, because he has this one, I'm not going to spoil it because it's really, like, it's a really ridiculously, like, it's a big spoiler. But he has this dope moment in the manga, like, that takes place after the stuff that's happened in the, it's been animated so far. That's so good. It's so good. I'm like, man, why'd you have to make this really cool character such a creep?
Right.
Like, this is one of those cases where, like, I wish the remake cut some of that out and just, like, removed it. Like, it's unnecessary.
Well, yeah.
It's okay to like a villain as long as you recognize they're horrible and they're not a good person.
Like, not to bring it back to Trigun, but whatever. I like Knives because he's awful.
Yeah, Knives is great.
He's just
Knives he's like goofy comic book evil. Hisoka's like real life horrible evil.
Like an actual criminal.
Hisoka's an actual criminal.
Like, he should be in jail. But the
and
thing
if you
is,
like Ahsoka, so should you.
Yeah. It's like, the thing is with Knives, it's like he is comically evil at times, but then also that man committed and like was actively committing actual real life genocide.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that man he's kind of like Magneto from the Avengers. He's like, only my kind can survive.
Yeah, and then it's like, in doing that, you're genociding your own kind, but that's another conversation for another day.
But back to One Piece.
Yeah, back to One Piece.
Taz Skylar is great as Sanji.
He's fantastic.
He's real good. He actually learned how to cook at a pro level for the role, as well as learning Taekwondo.
So, I was gonna say, the level of method acting, fantastic.
Yeah, have you seen any of the like the press tour stuff with the cast? It's so good.
I have.
They have great chemistry.
They do.
They make this show so good.
They do. I will say, I love Sanji. There was one character that was introduced that I loved a lot more than Sanji. Mihawk. I pronounce his name wrong every time I say it. But
were you about to say Milkhawk?
Maybe. It's not important. Mihawk. I love him. I am a sucker for characters with huge unwieldy weapons, and like, the sword is great. The way he wields the sword is great. He reminds me of Wolfwood, and you know how I feel about Nicholas D. Wolfwood. Yeah. So I'm like, this guy's all good in my books. Now I have to start reading One Piece, like, for real, because I want to see more of him.
Oh yeah, One Piece is great. You get a lot more of him in this than you do in the manga, if I'm being honest. Even just in this first season, you get way more of him than you do in the manga, low-key. He shows up more in the manga, don't get me wrong. He shows up again several times, and it's really cool. And he shows up in a very big way for a very specific character later on, but I won't spoil it. It'll be great. when you get there.
Okay.
But yeah, somebody did like the math like of like how many chapters and or volumes this covered and like what that means for like the next few seasons. And
Oh yeah, I saw that.
yeah, and they kind of like did some math to figure out, okay, so like how many seasons is all of this stuff going to be? And yeah, it's very interesting. Like like at first I was like, man, only 8 episodes, this isn't enough time to get through the stuff that they're going to get through. They're going to go all the way to the, what is it, Arlong Park arc. How are they going to get through that? And then after watching, I'm like, you know what, looking back on it, well, first off, this is an anime that started airing in 1999. They stretch things way out.
Yeah.
Because there was these there's a reaction channel I watched, Razzle, that was like was live streaming on Twitch their reaction to the series, which I was like, first, I don't know how you're doing this. I don't know how you're not getting sued or whatever or demonetized, but whatever. Like straight up full episodes. They were showing it on the screen, not like
showing it on stream.
Yeah,
That's
no,
crazy.
not just like how people do reactions where it's like just them watching it and you have to like.
And they got the timestamp.
Yeah,
and,
no. They were just I don't know what loophole they were like, because they've been doing this for a long time. I guess they just know some type of loophole with One Piece. I don't know how they did it. I guess it's because they didn't save the VOD maybe, but yeah, I don't know how they did
probably. Because I know when VTubers do like cover streams of songs, they won't save the VODs, and that saves them from like copyright and all that stuff. They still have to ask permission, but still.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know how they did that. But I realized like they were looking through the episodes, and I realized, oh wait, no, I went and looked through the episodes myself, and they were watching it because I was considering going back and rewatching it from the beginning because I had already started rewatching it. But then I saw how long, like the stuff with Buggy happens in a one like 45-minute long episode. In the Netflix show, it takes like 6 episodes, 6 30-minute episodes in the anime, and I'm like, I low key, because I've never read the beginning of One Piece. You know what? Boom, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm about to read the beginning of One Piece because I've never read like I told you, I started reading One Piece like the second arc or third arc after the time skip. So like I started reading the story like 700 chapters in. So there's a lot of it that I just straight up haven't read, and there are things that I watch in the anime that I'm just like, I don't want to rewatch that because they dragged it out for so long that I'm just like, I don't want to deal with that again. I might as well just read it. So you might just end up reading it at the same time, talking about it every week.
That's real.
But yeah, it was the Barate episodes that really sold me on Zoro a lot more when he was having that conversation with Nami. Yeah. That really made me. I still think he's way too stoic in the anime and the manga. He gets, he shows more emotion. He like gets angry. He gets upset. Like I feel like Nakinyu just doesn't really display much emotion as Zoro, which I feel like he's going for a slightly different take, but it's not. It's just not necessarily Zoro. But it's. I'm growing to love it a little bit more.
That makes sense.
And so, like I said, Sanji's great, but also Jacob Gibson as Usopp is perfect. Like the only characters that when I first saw them and immediately was like they're perfect were Nami, Usopp, and Sanji. They're perfect. Well, actually, Luffy's perfect too. He had to grow on me a little bit, but he's still great. Zoro's the weakest for me because he's just a little too stoic, and I feel like it's kind of being used to mask a little bit of a not so great acting.
Right.
But Emily Rudd, what were we gonna say?
I was gonna say, related to Sanji's arc, like that whole reluctant. I love the idea of a reluctant mentor figure, and that setup that he has with the guy. I can't remember his name to save my life. Peg leg guy. I don't know. I just love that. Yeah, I just love that thing that they have going on. It warms my heart.
Yeah, that's great. Emily Rudd is again. She's the best in this series to me because she does a great job with the scene later on that you haven't seen yet. But it's great. It's great. She's a perfect Nami. And to all those people who are weird about the cartoon proportions of these comic book characters, like these are real people playing the characters, and that's why it was a weird thing to be adapted in live action, but it's turned out to be good. And stop being weird to the actresses that are playing the women because they don't look like the ridiculous anime characters that look ridiculous. Like more so than any anime, One Piece goes buck wild with the proportions of the woman. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And it gets, like I told you, the character designs for the women, especially, just for the like the main characters that we've seen before, they just straight up get bad. They're just not good. I'm sorry to say. Nami and a character that shows up and joins the crew later, they look great early on, and then after the time skip, they look horrible, and it's upsetting. It's sad. I wish they could go back. But that's all I got about One Piece. We don't have anything else.
I don't have anything. I'm enjoying it so far.
Yep, so we're good. Can't wait for season 2. Moving on to Ahsoka. So, episode 5 of Ahsoka was some of the best Star Wars content I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
Now, I've been a little iffy on Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka in live action, but this episode shows that she's got the character down pat, because in this show, I feel like something that, you know, you have to realize that it takes place like 10 years after the last time we saw her in animation, and Ahsoka is older and more grizzled, and, you know, plus of course going from animation to live action, and having a new actor, you know, she feels different. But right. In this episode, you know, some things happen. She goes through a classic little old, some good old magical self-reflection, and essentially starts to become more like her old self. And in doing so, she feels more like the Ahsoka that we know and love. So it was less a matter of her not doing a great job of being Ahsoka, as much as playing a version of Ahsoka in a different point in her life, who eventually kind of starts to get that light she used to have back in her eyes. And in this episode, we see something I was hoping we'd see, which is a younger version of Ahsoka from a flashback during the Clone Wars, and she's played by Ariana Greenblatt, who played a young Gamora in Avengers: Infinity War, and also she played Sasha, the little girl, in Barbie.
I was about to say, that name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, because when I saw her face, I was like, why do I know this person? I recognize this person. And I looked up, I was like, oh, she was in Barbie. But yeah, it was a really good episode. I'm excited to see what they go with this. Actually, new episode comes out tonight. I'm excited.
Exciting.
But yeah, so bottoms.
Right, bottoms. I was like, huh? I'm sorry.
That was very random. Just like, wait, what? This isn't that type of podcast, Dijon.
Bottoms. Okay.
Even though that's low key the premise of that movie in a lot of ways.
Yep. So I'll try and be as spoiler light as possible, because you said you plan on watching it. First and foremost, that was just my experience as a lesbian in high school. I don't know how they put it on screen so accurately, but that was real. It was very real.
I hear it's very horny.
It is. It definitely is.
As it should
but
be.
It's not like in a weird, creepy way, and it's in a like, I'm a hormonal teenager and I don't know how to deal with this kind of way, which is, again, very relatable. That's what I was like in high school. I will say character work was great.
It's the female gaze versus the male gaze.
Yes, that's a big part of it, because it's like there's a lot of moments that you could pin as male gaze, but definitely don't feel that way.
The gaze isn't that different, but it's different enough.
Yeah, it's different enough where you're like, oh, this doesn't feel gross and disgusting, especially because
so sometimes the gazes, they intersect.
Yeah,
they're different.
It's
like one of those Venn diagrams where there's, you know, the circles overlap. Like there's some intersection, but they're different.
Yeah. Let me think. I love the character work. I went into it with kind of low expectations, because it didn't seem like my kind of movie either. But after watching it, it was just fun. It was just fun to watch. Funny, like there were a lot of laugh out loud moments.
Like the black woman in that show, she voices April in Mutant Mayhem.
Wondering why her voice sounded so familiar.
Yeah, she also is one of the main characters in The Bear.
Got you. Yeah, it was great. Very fun. Our theater, when we went to go see it, was very, like, there weren't a lot of people in there, so there was a lot of, like, again, laugh out loud moments, and like, oh hell no, just it was really fun. It was a fun time to go see it. If you haven't, I wouldn't personally like recommend seeing it in theaters or over seeing it, like watching it streaming wise, but at least watch the movie. It's very fun, very fun.
What was I gonna say? The actress, her name is Ayo Edeberry, but yeah.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, she's also a comedian. I watched a little bit of her stand up a while back, but yeah, she's really been She also
Yeah,
has
they're
like
getting help.
another new show out on Hulu as well. So yeah, she's been going up in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I've got. Without getting like into it too
Yeah.
in depth, because it's better watched blind. Like even though it's a comedy movie, it's definitely better watched blind.
So here we get into the meat of the episode, the video game section, which for the past few months has always been huge. Starting off with Metaphor ReFantazio by Atlas. So there was a creator interview for Metaphor ReFantazio with director Katsura Hashino, character designer Shigenori Sojima, and composer Shoji Meguro. That gives a lot of new info. Were you able to check this out? I know I sent it to you. I'm not sure if you checked it out though.
A peek at it. I didn't. I don't think I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, so um, I'll definitely just watching it if you have the time at some point because you'll probably like it a lot because um, they essentially kind of put your heart at ease. So they start off by saying that talking about like why they make contemporary RPGs, and their reason was that there are plenty of fantasy ones out there, so they wanted to make something different, and
Right.
that was their way of going against the mainstream trends and creating a unique voice for their studio, which of course they did. And given that, they didn't want to just do a traditional high fantasy RPG. And early on in
Right.
development, when the world started to look more like a conventional fantasy game, they decided to bring in more modern day elements to try and give it a unique twist. And they also still want the story to tie back into how people should live their lives in the present day, hence the metaphor part of the title. And that's something that they
Right.
do in a lot of their games. So they aren't really abandoning what makes them unique with this game, like you were kind of afraid of. And Hashino says that fantasy does more than immerse us in empty worlds of fiction. They exist because there's something about our world we want to change, and they help us imagine
Right.
something new, which is a core value of the game that shaped everything about it from story to gameplay, according to Hashino. And yeah, it feels like they show a little bit more gameplay in it as well. Not a lot, but enough. And yeah, it definitely feels more less like it's not just traditional high fantasy type stuff with like knights and all that. It's more of a mix between like high fantasy and a lot of modern day stuff. Like
That's a good
something that they show is that there's traversal mechanic with like a hoverboard
one. Ooh.
that looks really cool, and the map itself just looks bigger and more open than any other Atlas game that I've seen.
Oh wow.
But the Hoshino also says that the core theme of this game is facing your fear, which he points out sounds kind of basic, but the way they're tackling it is how it can affect a person positively or negatively.
Right.
It's a Yoshino says that it's a fundamental emotion we experience as humans, and depending on how we view it, it can paralyze us or push us outside of our comfort zones and propel us forward. So I'm interested to see how they tackle that.
Yeah.
Like he said, from the outside look at it in very basic theme and kind of make it a little deeper. And when it comes to character design, they didn't just bring in contemporary clothing styles and mix them with fantasy, but also looked at eras from the past. Like specifically, they point out the '60s. The character designer Sojima does, and the main character specifically is purposely androgynous and meant to be more heroic as opposed to the male and usually kind of just regular person designs that we usually see.
Right. Right.
They're
Which
usually
is
just
exciting.
a regular dude.
Yeah, just some guy. Which is
I would
exciting,
say
but then
the
also.
Persona 3 protagonist is the most androgynous of all of the Persona protagonists.
Yeah.
But even then,
Absolutely.
it's still kind of clear that they're meant to be a guy.
Yeah, and then like again, exciting. But I'm terrified for what the brain dead Atlas fan base is going to do to this poor protag. Oh,
Oh, God.
I will never forgive what they did to Naoto. I just won't do it.
Route
I
34,
won't.
do your job.
Not even just that. It's like I won't get into it here, but I'm just scared
What
to
is it?
see what the so Naoto's character arc in Persona 4 is very much
Is that the
like
main
set
character?
up. No, Naoto's one of the social link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Don't spoil it,
uh
obviously.
I'm not, but character arc is set up very much to be a transgender allegory. And,
Ah.
like it's heavy-handed as hell.
Which game?
But then Persona 4,
Okay. Isn't there like a gay character in that as well?
Kanji. I'll never forget what they did to him either.
Yeah.
The fan base is really bad about Naoto and Kanji. Like, there's arguments, and it's a mess. But with the Naoto, again, character arc is a transgender allegory, and it's not even like a, oh, it's so subtle that you wouldn't notice it. It's like hand over fist. They give it to you on a silver
And
platter.
people, of course, are gonna, like you're describing, try to argue it, despite the fact that the character designer or the like lead designer specifically goes out of the way to say, no, we purposely did make this character androgynous. Like we wanted, like they essentially wanted like Link, which Link isn't really a character. Like people might get mad at me by saying this, but Link isn't a character. Link doesn't really have much of a personality. The
You're
personality
right.
that Link has is the one that everybody forces on him, and that's not a thing. I mean, that's not a problem. That's a good thing. That's why Link is the way that Link is, so that you can imagine Link as in any way that you want. Like Link can be anything you want Link to be, because Link doesn't really have a personality, and that's
Yeah,
kind of what
that's
they're
right.
trying to do with this character.
I hope they succeed this time. But yeah, that's just a little anecdote.
Yeah. Uh, like what is it? There's a joke about how Persona fans haven't even played Persona. Low-key.
Yeah,
Like it was only
yeah.
until recently that people were like, man, because all the games came out on Game Pass and modern consoles, that everybody was like, man, Persona fans finally get to play their favorite game, Persona.
They're not wrong though.
I
They're
mean,
not
and
wrong.
it wasn't even necessarily their fault as much as it was, just the games weren't available on modern consoles,
Yeah.
except
I was
five.
gonna,
So
yeah, five. I was gonna say I was one of those Persona fans, but
yeah,
here's the thing: there's a silly little thing called emulation
yeah.
that I learned how to do.
But also, I was one of those Metal Gear fans where I'd only played 4 and 5, but I still loved the entirety of the series and knew everything about it. But now I've played the 2 and 3, and I'm definitely gonna play them again eventually. I need to play them with some friends. You see, we can go a little bit of Metal Gear tangent. I'm gonna make it short, but I'm excited for you to play it because none of my friends play Metal Gear. I need someone to talk to Metal Gear about. I literally have no friends to talk to Metal Gear about. It's sad. It's
I've
it's.
always wanted to get into Metal Gear. It's just like I've never been able to because I don't own any
Yeah,
PlayStation consoles.
but now it's on Switch, so
Yeah, so now I have
hopefully,
no excuse. I'm excited.
Metal Gear Solid 4 makes it to the other consoles as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah. What else do we have? They also make the backgrounds look painterly to capture that fantasy aesthetic, and of course the
Really?
game has the usual flashy UI as shown in the announcement trailer. And finally, Shoji Meguro talks about the music a little bit towards the end. It says that the core concept of the scoring is music used in religion and spiritual music style that evokes a classical fantasy feel, which they played a little bit of music, and it's not necessarily my style, but it feels like it'll suit the game. Like it's not going to be, it doesn't feel like it's going to be like, at least not with what they showed so far. It doesn't feel like it's going to be like Persona music that you just listen to when you're out on a walk, but it it'll probably work for the game itself.
Yeah, I trust Shoji Meguro with my life. That man can compose a soundtrack. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. If you don't have anything,
nope, I'm just excited. I feel a little better about it now. With this like thing, yeah, than I did before when we first talked about it. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
yeah. So Starfield has come out, and I almost considered waiting to play it because of a lot of the reviews and the negativity in them. But I decided to play it anyway. Day one, Game Pass, and immediately dropped it. Because this is definitely a
Yeah.
game that will get better and better as the years go on. But right now, it's like similar to like Cyberpunk. But right now, it's not at a place where I'm like, and it might never get to a place where I'm really interested in it. It just might not be for me, honestly. It feels like it's an early access. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with early access. It's just that AAA studios don't like to say that, because the thing is, they've been working on this game for a very long time, and they're
Yeah.
going to be working on it for even longer to make it even better than even better. And sometimes I think when you're working on a game for so long, unless you're Rockstar, which is the studio that makes GTA and Red Dead Redemption, which they're gonna take their time, make the game as good as they want to, and then release it, whenever they want to. But with a studio like this that's making an RPG specifically, I think it's understandable that you like after a certain point in development, you're like, okay, the game's at a state to where I want to release it. It's not done, but we just have to release this game because we've been advertising it for so long.
Right.
So it's understandable that you'd want to release a game a little earlier than it being at 100%. You know, early access. You know, other indie studios do it all the time. It's just that AAA studios, I just feel like it's a they're a little too proud to admit that the game's not done and that they're releasing it in early access. But
Yeah,
like, if you just say like, hey, the game's not finished. This is early access. You have to pay full price because this is a really big game, but it's still going to get updated and get better, and those updates will be free since you bought the full game.
right.
And yeah, just have some patience with us as we continue to make the game better. Like, if AAA studios were just more transparent about stuff like that, I think people would be okay. There'll of course be some jerks online who would be upset about it, but ultimately I think most people would be like, okay, you're being transparent, you're being honest, rather than just releasing an unfinished game and pretending like it's finished, which this is a very clearly unfinished game being released, and then pretending like it's finished, and also pretending like it's something that it isn't, which is they 100% advertised it like it was No Man's Sky. You want to know what you can't do? Fly from planet to planet. you
Yeah.
you cannot manually land on any planets. You can only traverse through planets through a star map. You can fly around in space around planets a little bit, but if you try to fly towards a planet, you cannot enter the atmosphere and land. Somebody did a video where they were flying towards a planet and they left, went to sleep for 8 hours, came back, and they were inside the planet.
Oh.
And like the planet just
Oh
disappeared and they
no.
could only see the space around them. Like, this game is just not what it was advertised as, and it's unfortunate because I
Oh,
wanted this
shit.
I wanted this to be the first Bethesda RPG I could actually get into, but it's not. And then maybe
That,
it'll
that, that's the curse. I
yeah,
swear, all their games are cursed.
but maybe like all the other Bethesda games, after a couple years it'll get much better, and I'll finally finish it up. But until then, it's just not for me. And Cyberpunk was a completely different beast with the studio execs kind of forcing them to crunch, as well as you know just having it, rushing it, basically. Like, if that game was actually worked on as long as everybody assumed it was worked on, but really it wasn't. Like, it was made in 5 years versus the 10 years people thought it was made in. Like, if it was actually made in those 10 years, it would have came out even better than the version that's about to come out very soon is. But it was that's basically another game that, even though it wasn't on purpose, was released in early access in a lot of ways, and it has slowly gotten better
Yeah.
over the years. And now the actual version of what I consider to be the full version of the game comes out very soon, in a couple months. I think October, November, and I'm finally gonna check it out. So I'm excited for that.
Mm.
Which I
Yeah,
did send the CGI trailer they had for that DLC. Did you manage to check that out with Idris Elba?
I did.
It
I
was
did.
really
It looked
good.
really nice.
That was a
Yeah.
really good CG trailer, and it just like it looked too good because a lot of times I was like, that's just Idris Elba sitting there. That's not like a CG version of him. That's just him. They just put him in the
That's
video game.
Idris Elba.
That's just Idris Elba. But yeah, it was really good. I'm very interested in that DLC story.
Hmm.
But yeah, moving on to the Nintendo Direct.
I have so many thoughts. I have so
Yes.
many thoughts. I have so many
So
thoughts.
we're
Okay.
gonna start with Contra, Operation
Right.
Gulaga or Guluga. I love Contra. I used to play Contra a lot with my little brothers growing up. So I'm not sure if this is releasing on other consoles, but if it is, I'm gonna play it with my brother on Xbox. Um,
Nice.
Cause I just love Contra, and it looks like classic Contra. It looks real fun. Cause I hear that like some of the other Contra games that have come out since like the older ones haven't been good, but this one
Hmm.
looks like it's just they're doing something that a lot of studios have been doing lately, which is making new games in a franchise that is still in the spirit of the original game,
Yeah.
without like trying to make major changes to make it new, because people just want that old thing, but in a with a new coat of paint.
Yeah. Tiny.
So yeah, I'm excited for this. But there was a new trailer for Mario RPG, and
Yes.
they introduced some mechanics. One of which I think is new, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But
Yeah.
which is you can time button presses with your attacks to do more damage, and or
That
and hit more enemies. And
that's not new
okay,
actually. That was in
I
the
was wondering if that
game,
was new
but
because
yeah, it was.
they say that they're
Oh.
introducing new things in this trailer. And I was like, I'm not sure which one is new. I've never played it. Um, but it is interesting, and it like fills up a gauge where you can essentially do an all-out attack from Persona.
That's new.
Okay, that's the new part.
That's new. Yeah, that's the new part. So Mario RPG, all the Mario RPGs have this thing called action commands, and that's what those are: timing the button presses to do more damage, hit more enemies, etc., etc. They're in the Paper Mario games, they're in the Mario and Luigi games, but of course, Mario RPG being the first of its kind, it was in the game, but they never explained it, and that was like a huge problem with a
Wild.
lot of the mechanics in Mario RPG. They were there, they just never explained them to
So
you,
people would
and so
just issue the command and then just watch it happen instead of trying to
yep,
time it. Yeah.
yep, yep. And it's like sometimes your attacks do more damage, and you'd be like, why? Why is this happening?
Because you just
And
made a
it's
mistake and
just
pressed the button.
yeah.
That's
It like
hilarious.
definitely presented itself as a press the button RPG, but it was like there's a lot more involved in the combat, and
Mm.
I'm glad to see that they established this from the beginning because that was one of my biggest problems with Mario RPG. There's so many mechanics that just aren't explained.
Yeah, and then they just announced another Mario RPG remake with Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which I again never played Paper Mario, so at first I was like, "Oh, they're making a new Paper Mario," and then I watched another video. I was like, "No, this is a remake," and I was like, "Oh, this is a remake? I thought this was just a new one."
Now, like I said, the Mario RPG franchise, both Paper Mario and the actual RPG franchise in general, so like the Mario and Luigi games, Bowser's Inside Story, Superstar Saga, etc., etc. Those are my favorite Mario games. I especially like Paper Mario, but Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is one of my favorite games of all time. I used to have a disc copy. I can't find it anymore, and I've been wanting to replay Thousand Year Door for the longest time, and just have not been able to find my copy. So when they announced that remake, like excitement didn't even begin to describe how I felt about it. It looks great. It sounds great. I'm sad that it's coming out in 2024. I want to play it now. I need
Well,
it
you got to
in my
finish
life
Mario
now.
RPG first,
I
so you
know,
got
but
time.
I do have time. But it's like,
And then
Thousand
Persona
Year
3 is coming out
Door.
in February. Like, you got time. You got other
I do have.
games.
I
You
do.
don't want
Clock
all of them
Tower
come out at the same
also.
time.
I'm
That
like,
would be unfortunate.
I'm too overwhelmed, so I'm gonna play none of them. But yeah, excited about this. Excited what this means for the Mario, Paper Mario series as a whole.
Yeah, I feel
Because
like
we've been,
they're about to make some new Mario RPG if they're remaking all of these older ones.
that's what I'm saying. It's like after, for Paper Mario, after Super Paper Mario, which is my second favorite, the series kind of fell off because Sticker Star was garbage. And it's like highly regarded as garbage. Color Splash was better, but not quite where we wanted to be. Origami King is really good. It's no Thousand Year Door original Paper Mario, but it's pretty good.
Origami King
So
came out, what, a few years ago? Because I remember hearing about that.
mhm. Yep. And it's like it's exciting to see that they're bringing back the old ones because it gives me hope for a Super Paper Mario re-release or remake or something. I love that game to pieces. I still have my Wii copy, but I know one day it's gonna go up in flames and I'm gonna be sad. And I want more people to be able to experience Super Paper Mario without the garbage motion controls of the Wii, because that held that game back a lot. It's a great game with a great story, but the motion controls really kill it sometimes. Um, and then again, I I don't have as much hope for the Mario and Luigi series being revived, given that Alpha Dream is now bankrupt. But if they do manage to bring it back, if they like port Superstar Saga to consoles or something like that, or do another Nintendo Switch Online tier that has like the DS included, I would love to play Partners in Time again. Everybody hates Partners in Time, but that one's my favorite. It's the black sheep of the family, and that's why it's my favorite. Like I would love to play those games again and love to for people to get the opportunity to play them because it's like they're definitely not your mama's Mario game, but they are fantastic games. And again, story is fantastic. And I encourage everyone to, if you get a chance to play any of the Paper Mario games or any of the Mario and Luigi games, play them. They are good. They're good games. Encourage Nintendo to make more for my sake.
Yeah. Yep, happy for you. They
I'm very
also,
excited, if you could tell.
yeah, they also had a full trailer for Princess Peach Showtime, as we know it's called now. Um, on the Nintendo website, it says Princess Peach's trip to the Sparkle Theater goes off script when the wicked Grape and the Sour Bunch steal the show. Partner with the theater's guardian, Stella, to call curtains on this tragedy by using a powerful ribbon and taking on several starring roles, each with their own look and abilities. Fend off the Sour Bunch with sensational swordplay as a sword fighter, put on a detective hat to find out who done it in a museum mystery, and go from kung fu master to pastry chef. And the language on the website suggests that there are also other transformations that they haven't shown yet. So,
Right.
yeah, this game looks
Very
interesting.
exciting.
Princess Peach
Yeah,
finally
it's like
getting a new game that isn't she's a woman, so her power is her emotions.
Right, yeah. Super Princess Peach, truly the game of all time. Also, I love the character work. In the trailer, like these designs are fantastic. And then also, I love that Peach has her own villain, which is fantastic. And that her villain is also fruit themed, which is it's very silly to
Yeah.
me. I like it. I like the
But
character
now
work
that we
used.
have this, let's do my idea, Nintendo. It's called The Adventures of Zelda, a whole new franchise of Zelda-focused Zelda games. Like the Legend of Zelda. That's Link. Let them do that. The Adventure of
Yeah.
Zelda. These games should be just Zelda. Link should play the role that Zelda usually plays, which is the damsel in distress who sacrifices herself, or in this case, himself, for everybody else. Okay? Let's do that. I have a very specific idea, though, that I'm going to have to talk about sometime.
There was a game like that for the CDI. It was terrible, but hopefully if we do I would want a game like that. I want to play as Zelda. I think
Yeah.
that would be fun.
I want to play as Zelda. I want to play as Ganon. Like, Link's
Yeah,
great, but just do something different.
you have all
Nintendo
these
sometimes is afraid to do different things when it comes to characters specifically. Like they'll bring a new brand new gameplay elements, but they won't do anything different with Mario as the character or Link as
yeah.
the character or stuff like that.
And I hope with this Peach game they like it does well first of all, so that like it encourages them that hey, maybe breaking outside the mold isn't so bad, you know?
Yeah. So moving on to the PlayStation Direct.
Oh, not yet. Not
Oh,
yet.
wait,
One more thing
is that
from
what
the
they call
Nintendo
it? No,
Direct.
they call them State of Plays. Why did I write Direct? Because of Nintendo. But yeah,
Real.
what were you saying?
Wait, one more thing. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon
Oh yeah,
remake is also dropping.
remaster.
Remaster. Yes, 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 yes. I love Dark Moon. It's not a lot of people do. It was released on the DS, and like people are like the garbage are crap. The what is it? The graphics are kind of crappy and yada yada yada. I love Dark Moon, so I'm excited to see it get remastered. I'm wondering how they're gonna make it work because the touchscreen doesn't really have that much of a function in um in the original game, but there are definitely some very like DS specific gameplay mechanics that I'm wondering how they're going to transfer over to Switch. And I hope that it's good. It's a good remaster because I love Dark Moon and I love playing it to pieces. My DS is going up in smoke, so I can't play my original copy anymore. Um, and I wonder how they're going to make Scarescraper work. And I wonder if Scarescraper is going to be active from now on. That would be nice because there was some content in the original Dark Moon that was locked behind Scarescraper that you just can't really access anymore because a the DS is kind of dead, the 3DS is kind of dead, and then B nobody's ever on the Scarescraper servers anyway. So
No,
it's like
what's Skyscraper?
so Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon has like a multiplayer mode where it's like you and three other Luigis or up to three other Luigis explore haunted mansions, like mini mansions in order to like capture ghosts or find Polterpup, which is the little dog that was introduced in Dark Moon, and they're like ghosts unique to this mode. And you go through levels of the Scare Scraper and keep going until you run out of health or whatever. I never got a chance to play it because I got Dark Moon when the servers pretty much died off. But it's from what I've heard, it's pretty fun.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
while we're talking about it, I guess let's talk about like like a Nintendo Switch or whatever they call it, their next console, right? You
Mm,
know, we've talked about how currently there are rumors of dev kits out in the wild for developers to be able to make games for it, but
right.
also we talked about in private just like what if it was like a kind of like a DS where it has either a folding screen similar to like the Samsung phones, or it was like a laptop almost.
Right.
Like the next Nintendo console is just straight up a gaming laptop, but smaller or something like that. Um,
Nice.
like essentially like something like a new DS or just something similar to that would be really cool. A folding screen would be great, but little kids would break that like immediately. But adults, we would treat it right. And if they do something like that, it would be easier for them to port old like DS games to a new console.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't be surprised if they do that just for that sake, Loki.
I hope so.
But also, do they make it work by like having you able to like play it like on a TV screen and with the like actual um Switch in hand?
Scarecrow? Oh no.
Because maybe that's something they do like for those type of
Yeah, that's
games. You can like have it, on the TV and also have it in your hand, so all the touchscreen stuff you can still do.
yeah.
Like
That'd
on
be
on
nice.
the future console, if they add
Oh yeah.
some type of streaming thing that allows them to do that.
Right.
Or like their dock, if the dock is beefier and is
Mhm.
more than just like adding to the Switch and can like by itself play games, so that you can do
Mhm.
stuff like that would be interesting. I don't know, but
Could be.
yeah. Moving on to the PlayStation State of Play, I forgot to send you a trailer for this, but did you see a trailer for Baby Steps?
I've not.
So Baby Steps is the return of Bennett Foddy from Getting
Really?
Over It with Bennett Foddy. This is developed by Gabe Kuzillo, Bennett Foddy, and Maxi Boach. Baby Steps invites players on an uncharted journey where just you should. Well, I don't know how much you're gonna get from the trailer. Well, you can watch the trailer. I talk about it
Yeah.
on me, but like the audio kind of helps, but not right now though, because it has that classic like Getting Over It Bennett Foddy humor, except that it's
Mhm.
the main character that's talking to themselves.
Right.
And like um, yeah, was it says it invites players on an uncharted journey where staying on your feet is the greatest challenge of all. Their literal and humorous control scheme allows you to manually steer each of the character Nate's steps with the DualSense controller, from individually lifting each foot to choosing where to place them. Um, Careful where
It's
you
like
place
what?
it though, because each surface is physically stimulated. So try not to lose your footing as you guide Nate step by step through a multitude of wild terrain-based challenges. But what were you saying it was like?
Quap. Flash game where it's essentially the same concept, but you're running a marathon.
But yeah, it looks very funny and like difficult.
I'm watching the trailer. It does look very silly. I can imagine the state of YouTube after this game comes out.
Oh yeah. Oh, State of YouTube. Oh, that's gonna be a good time for YouTube. But yeah, that was the first thing they showed. But they also finally announced, very randomly. I guess some people predicted it, or it maybe it leaked or something. But um, a trailer for the Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways DLC, which was a DLC that was made for the original game as well. So people were expecting them to do it as well, where you play as Ada Wong on her parallel journey through the events of the story, filling in unanswered questions from the main story. Um, but yesterday they actually showed another trailer that gives a lot more info and basically reveals that everything that was missing from the base game, that was in the original game, will basically be in this DLC. Like there was a bunch
Ooh.
of stuff that was missing there. People were like, man, it wasn't a deal breaker for anyone, but they wish it was there and it'll be in this DLC. Like literally everything they showed it and they were like, oh, just everything that was missing was in this DLC. Now what they need to do is do something similar with Resident Evil 3 remake, because that game is missing they learned their mistake. I mean, they learned from their mistakes because Resident Evil 4 is pretty much perfect. Plus, we're getting this DLC that's going to make it even more perfect. So, but with Resident Evil 3, the mistake they made was that they rushed it basically.
Right.
They were on a roll with Resident Evil 7, then Resident Evil 2 remake was a hit, and Resident Evil 3 remake was always the original game was a shorter game and reused assets from the original Resident Evil 2.
Mm.
So they did a similar thing with this one, except that they cut some stuff out, which people didn't like. So I would like, if I was them, I would not remake it again, obviously, but add in the stuff that was missing, and call it
Right.
Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, because that was what the original one was called. Whereas this one is just called Resident Evil 3. So call it like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis or Nemesis Edition, where they add in all the stuff that was missing. Like for example, there's only one section where it's honestly really sad, because this is the game where they really introduced the idea of this stalker following you everywhere with Nemesis.
Mm.
And there's only one section where he really stalks you and it's scary and like kind of difficult. The rest of the time he just randomly pops up for a very short
Right.
period of time and you have to do a couple boss fights. But there is one section that they could add that would give us a whole level where he does follow us for longer and kind of alleviate kind of that thing that was missing, which is you go through the station again, but with Carlos. But in the game, you go through the station with Claire. I mean, not Claire. Why am I forgetting her name? It starts with a J, I think.
Jill.
Jill, yeah.
The only reason I
Um,
remember her name is because of that old meme.
Jill
You almost
sandwich.
became
Yeah.
Yep, Jill sandwich.
um, but yeah. But you go through it with Jill and Nemesis chases you. So I think they should add that back. They should add that back so that you actually have a section where he's chasing you again throughout a larger area. And there is a clock tower section that they also cut out. So it was really only those two sections that they should add, um, which I don't think would be too much to add. So that would be cool. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for this. Oh, I forgot to mention, it comes out in 2 days.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, they announced it last Thursday. It comes out the 21st of September. Ridiculous. This is so
Very.
random. Yeah, it is paid DLC, but there is some free DLC for Mercenaries mode where you unlock Ada and Albert Wesker as characters, which I think we talked about
Oh
before.
yeah.
But they need to remake Resident Evil 1 because you're just showing Wesker. Like, nobody knows who Wesker is if you aren't like a huge like Resident Evil fan who watches videos about it. Like, because they remade the first one before. That's why they didn't remake it before too. But it was still remade in the style of the original game with a fixed camera and tank controls. So it needs to be remade again in the style of the current remakes, so that people can experience Chris, Jill, and Wesker's original story and actually get to know who these characters are. Because
Right.
low-key people don't know much about Chris or Wesker at all. They know Jill because of 3, but even then, you play as both Chris and Jill in the first one. So yeah, I really want them to remake the first one. The next game they make will probably be, you know, I'm not sure because they've been going back and forth. They did Resident Evil 3 immediately after Resident Evil 2 remake because, again, it was like, sharing assets and they kind of rushed it. And then they did Resident Evil 8. So I wonder if they're going to keep going back and forth like the next one they're going to do is Resident Evil 9. Then they're going to do another remake, or like with Resident Evil 2, they're going to do another remake, then do Resident Evil 9. But yeah, I'm excited for this DLC. I like Resident Evil 4 a lot. I played it all the way through twice. One
Wow.
immediately after I beat it the first time, I immediately started playing again and played it all the way through. And I did the same thing with Disney. So yeah, I love survival horror.
Real.
Spider-Man 2. Did you manage to check out the trailer I sent?
I did.
So there's a trailer at State of Play. Um, a bunch of info was also revealed a couple of days later from a press event where people got hands-on with the game for 3 hours. But starting with the State of Play, the map has nearly doubled in size, expanding to Queens and Brooklyn, and we'll also, of course, be able to switch between both Peter and Miles near instantly due to the PlayStation 5's SSD. But it also allows you to fast travel by, like, no one's gonna use fast travel because swinging
Right.
is
It's
like
fun
the best
playing.
part of the game. But if you want to, which I'll do it a couple times probably just to see it because it looks so cool, because this is ridiculous. You can literally just pick a spot on the map and click it, and it just happens.
Oh.
There is no like specific fast travel points. You just choose, and the game within seconds just does this really cool animation. They show it in the trailer where you go to the map, you click the spot, you click the fast travel button, and it zooms into the map, and then the map turns 3D and shows the buildings forming in the city, and then one of the Spider-Men comes swinging or gliding into the frame, and then you start controlling them. It is insane.
That is really neat.
God, give it, leave it to Insomniac to really utilize the power of the PS5, man. This is so good. But yeah, and each Spider-Man would also have their own separate side stories to uncover throughout the game that is individual to each of them. Um, and speaking of which, they can glide and travel through wind tunnels to build up speed in the air. But gliding doesn't like replace swinging like a lot of people are kind of afraid of. Like it's slower than swinging, according to people who actually got hands on with it. And to kind of like keep up the momentum, you're gonna want to throw some swings in between them. So, but it is really useful in places like parks where there's not a lot of places to swing, as well as Brooklyn and Queens where the buildings are way shorter. Gliding is much more useful. There will also be over 65 suits in the game, which I assume includes every suit from the previous 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
With the addition of 4 different color variations for each suit, which is
But
dope.
don't they take battle damage?
Yeah, and in Miles Morales they took battle damage, and I think they also took battle damage in the remaster for the original game. So yeah, I think they also do. All 65 suits probably take battle damage.
Wow.
And like obviously a lot of them are cloth, so they have similar battle damage, but there are some now they're adding things like capes and like of course jackets over top of stuff. So like yeah, the battle damage is gonna have to be unique for all of them, some of them. So yeah, you're right. I forgot about the battle damage. That this is crazy that there are so many suits.
Yeah.
um yeah, in the press previews they got to explore the city at a few hours into the game and do pretty much whatever they wanted in the time allotted. And the story mission available was the same one in the gameplay showcase they had a few back when they were like swinging across the river. Um, and except that they got to take it a little bit further, and actually play the lizard boss fight. And he has a health bar. Thank God. I hate boss fights without health bars, and every boss was like that in the last two games. None of them had health bars, but now they have health bars. Thankfully, I hate when you're fighting a boss and you don't know when they're gonna die. So yeah, I'm glad they have health bars now. The combat is much deeper this time around with the addition of, well, actually, I think they always had undodgeable attacks, but they also now have unblockable attacks,
Ooh.
which you have to use a parry to stop. Um, but yeah, that's very interesting. It just makes it a lot deeper than just punching and dodging. Um, making counters require a little more skill. But yeah, that's all I got for Spider-Man. I'm real excited. Comes out uh November 20th, I think. So yeah, real excited for that. Or is it October? Hold on, let me double check that. I think it's October. Yeah, it's October 20th. Good, because if it was November 20th, I don't know, I would perish. But so it's about a month away. I'm real excited. But at the very end, they showed a new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It was so good. And there was a lot of info revealed from the creative director Tetsuya Nomura and the game director Nako Hamaguchi in the PlayStation blog. And in this trailer, they highlight the new synergy moves where characters do team up attacks by using a gauge and a gauge charge similar to limit breaks. We also see that Red 13 is now playable and has his own unique revenge gauge, which charges when he guards against attacks. And he can spend that charge to use various abilities. And on a similar note, they also reveal that there will be characters that join you for battle in this game, but won't be playable until the third game. Just like Red 13 wasn't playable in the first game, but now he's playable in this one. But he did fight alongside you. They also showed tons of mini games and revealed that all the mini games from the original game will be returning, plus more. I just want more Fort Condor from the Integrate DLC of the remake, because I was obsessed with that game. It's like a real-time strategy type game that was so fun. My hunger was not satisfied. I need more. I need so much more. I low-key wanted it to be its own game, just by itself. I would pay good money for that. And
you forgot the most important part. Cloud on a Segway.
Oh yeah, he was on a Segway. That looks like it might be a minigame or something. I'm not sure about that. But it also looks like you might be able to change the character's clothes, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will take place in the part of the original game where the map opens up a lot more. So this game will have a lot more inspiration. And the director Hamaguchi says, the world map is vast and expansive, so not all of the locations on it will be used in the main storyline alone. In fact, volume-wise, the amount of side content in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is nearly double that of the main quest content. Players who want to enjoy Final Fantasy VII setting on an even deeper level can explore all the corners of the world, discovering many different and exciting experiences, such as new stories, battles, and minigames to play. It will also be possible to return to any of the regions in the world, even after the main quest moves on from that area, so you don't have to worry about leaving things behind or unfinished, which I'm so glad about, because in the first game in the remakes, you had to finish all the quests in that area before you left. But I'm glad you can just go back. But yeah, this is releasing February 29th on 2 discs, mind you. So yeah, my Persona 3 playthrough will definitely be interrupted because this game is also, I hear, around 100 hours. So yeah, Persona 3, I'm sorry, but Final Fantasy.
Real.
But yeah, I'm so excited for this. Also, the remake is out on PC, so if you want to play that, it's out on PC now. It's not just on PlayStation anymore.
Yeah.
I think it also came on Xbox too. So yeah, it's out everywhere. The remake, I think now, but You're gonna have to wait a while for Rebirth. probably like a
Yeah.
probably like a year afterwards. It'll come out on PC.
Hey, it gives me it gives me time to finish the first game
Yeah,
though, to be real.
it took me a while to finish the first game, not because it's long, but because it just some of it just. I tell you this all the time. RPGs drain the soul from my body. But the moment I got back into it was when they showed the very first trailer for Rebirth. And then when I got back into it, I got back into it heavy because I realized that I
Yeah.
had literally stopped just before a point in the game where the game just got significantly better. But yeah,
That's the funny thing about RPGs. Like I always pick them up and drop them. Like it's not a good practice because then you lose some of the story with some RPGs. But I pick up and drop RPGs like at least once a month. Like I'll play it for like a couple weeks and then be like, okay, I'm tired of this, and move on to something else. And that's probably the only sustainable way to play an RPG. If you try to play the whole thing in one sitting or like or the whole way through in like a couple days, you're either very very interested or like you're insane. That those are the only two
or
explanations
or
for
you
it.
have no job.
Yeah, that also the secret third thing.
But they also showed some Ghost Runner 2, a new trailer, and also revealed there's a demo out. Um, and I played it, and it is very hard.
No.
Because it's fast paced, and you die, you get hit once.
Oh.
And it's like a first person hack and slash.
Oh.
But
Okay.
the checkpoints are generous, so it's not like you if you die you have to replay the whole level, which would suck so bad.
Very much would
They
suck.
they they essentially start you at the beginning of the like encounter with the enemies or whatever. And
Oh. Okay.
it's real good. It's real good. When I play it, I can't imagine. I just kept imagining that I want a Sonic game like this, where there are areas where it's linear, but I feel like I haven't played a 3D Sonic game in a while, but low key, I feel like they don't require much skill,
Mm.
and that it's just kind of it's very much just on rails.
Yeah.
But this game, it's sometimes it's on rails, literally and figuratively. Um, and but it still requires skill. Like you still have to dodge enemies. You still have to do platforming stuff to actually survive. Whereas I feel like 3D Sonic games sometimes you're just going forward as fast as you can and not necessarily putting skill in to make sure that you don't die.
Right.
So I would really like a Sonic game similar to this, but instead of cutting people hits off, you just spin dash them to death. But so Mortal Kombat 1, like I mentioned, came out. Well, today actually is the official release date, the 19th. But I played it on the 14th, and over the weekend I finished up the story. And well, actually, something we didn't get to talk about was the fact that Natara is voiced by and motion captured by Megan Fox,
Right.
which is weird. And I was hopeful, but she actually really sucks. She's not good. It's disappointing because I was like, man, at least she's an actor, unlike the woman who plays Sonya Blade. Was it Ronda Rousey played Sonya Blade in the last game, which was like, she's not an actress, she's just a UFC fighter. Get her out of here. And like, they didn't even use her face; it was just her voice, and she's not good at it. Why did they do that? I don't know. It was so strange. Like, if you were gonna use her face, I would understand, but her voice, when she's not, she just doesn't have skills at it. It's ridiculous. But Meg was just phoning it in, like, man, it was sad.
Yeah.
I really wanted her to be good, but she just wasn't. And they have a Jean Claude Van Damme skin because I don't know if you know, but they originally Mortal Kombat was meant to be a Jean Claude Van Damme video game,
I
but
did not know that.
it ended up becoming its own thing because he didn't want a video game made of him. So now he's
That's
finally
true.
it's come full circle, and he's a skin for Johnny Cage in the game, which Johnny Cage is based off in. Um, but yeah, I also wanted to talk. You know what? Maybe I'll say that for the end. No, never mind. So, there's the creator Ed Boon talked about potentially having like a streamer mode that kind of and like YouTuber mode that kind of helps him be able to post it on YouTube because it's very violent and YouTube has weird rules against it.
Mm.
All of a sudden, when it wasn't a thing before and it's never been that serious.
Right.
So a lot of people aren't able to make money on some of their videos without heavily editing out the like gory stuff. But my response to that is, what do you mean you're just thinking about it? You're big on accessibility, and so am I. And I
Right.
feel like
Right.
this is something Mortal Kombat should have had for years.
Oh, absolutely.
Because after they literally caused the creation of the SRB, the game's rating
Yeah.
system, um, some of the early Mortal Kombat, the 2D ones, had a blood code where you could cut off the blood, like there was no longer any more blood, and that was cool, so little
Yeah.
kids can actually play the game. Their parents don't have to worry about it. But they stopped doing that at a certain point. But I think something that people who argue about, like, this is the identity of the game, it's violent, that's the point, like if you don't like that, just don't play it, which is that's not a bad argument if we're being real,
It's not.
because
It's
you're right,
not.
that is an identity of the game, and no one's asking you to take it away. When it comes to accessibility, it's always about adding an option, not taking anything away, but adding things to allow people to enjoy it. And what you have to take into consideration is that, as violent as it seemed back in the day, games have gotten more realistic. So the gore has only gotten worse over the years. So there are probably people who were younger, or who, however old they were playing the old games, loved them, didn't mind the gore, thought it was really fun, and even played some of the early 3D games that weren't as good looking as they are now. Loved them, enjoyed them, didn't mind the gore. But as soon as they got up to the current games, like 11 and 1, are extremely realistic. Like they're basically real people, and the gore probably bothers some people. So you have to take into consideration that there are hardcore fans of this series that grew up playing it, but now it's gotten to a point to where they can't stomach the gore anymore because it's too much. And I think that those old fans should be allowed to play this game without having to worry about that gore. Like, have an
Right. And it's
option
like,
to straight up cut off the blood, but that isn't a fix all, because you still have the case of super moves, which are very useful in just the combat of the game, like the actual mechanics. People are going to do those all the time. So having an option to do something that Dead Space does, which you're like, Dead Space is also a game where violence is the core to its identity, but they added an option to actually have, like, kind of like these big sensor blur bars over top of the gore in Dead Space, the remake, whenever
right.
it shows up on screen. So you cut off a monster's leg and a big blur pops up. So, like, they have that for people who need it. I don't think it's for the monsters. I think it's for, like, the humans that you see get messed up. And
Yeah.
having that, but for this game, would be really smart. Like, people, I feel like a lot of people, I feel like we have a different mindset than the average person, because we're designers. We can immediately start thinking of solutions to the problem, with other people's like, I don't know how they would even think about changing it because it's so intrinsic to the gameplay. And whereas me and you
Like
can
there's.
immediately go, I can think of 1,000 ways off top.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah. And especially as a person with a like I have a weak stomach. I can't. I love Mortal Kombat. Probably like not love, but like I like that game. I like the series. I like what it's done for gaming, and like the fact that it established the ERSB system is so silly to me. So it's like it's got a special place in my heart. After like when I saw gameplay of 11, and I was like, I can never play these games
understand.
because like yeah, it's like I can't. There's some TV series that I can't watch
Makes
because of the
sense.
gore in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like 11, like back when the games were first like becoming 3D and all that, the gore was cartoonish.
Yeah.
It's like cartoon violence, etc., and it was stomachable.
And
But
they need
like
to go
this is
back to that.
like yeah,
Because I think
yeah, it's
at this
like
point it's getting too mean spirited, and I think they need to go back to, like, literally Looney Tunes esque violence, where it's still bloody and gory, but it's just goofy and funny.
it doesn't. It feels too real, and it's like it kind of gives me a bit of an ick because it's like I don't know. It just doesn't. Ugh, I don't
Like,
like
and
it.
having the option to remove blood in the moment to moment combat, being able to blur out the fatal blows, the gory part of the fatal blows, and also changing the color of blood, which is something that in Mortal Kombat 11 there were characters with blood that wasn't, like, with insides and blood that were different colors. I think it was Devorah's insides were and her blood were green, and Noob
Right.
Saibot was black and inky, so it was hard to make out the details. And making that like you can change that in the settings to make the blood black, and have the insides be all black, and the only thing you can see, instead of being able to see, like, the actual organs, you just see it's just black, and all you see is the skeleton, kind of like when cartoon characters get electrocuted, and it's just
Yeah.
a black outline of their body, and all you see is their skeleton. Because I don't think they're going to demonetize you for
A skeleton.
a clean, no blood, just bones breaking. I don't think they're going to demonetize you for that. So having that, like, having something that does that for the fatal blows whenever they do their little X-ray moments, would be dope. And of course, having, like I said, the blur. And then fatalities, you don't need to blur those, because those are optional. You
Right.
just choose not to do fatality. If you're going to do a fatality, that's on you. Like they don't need to border fatalities because if you do that, that's your fault.
Right.
You don't have
like
to.
you knew what you were getting into.
You literally have to precisely press buttons to do that. That's your fault.
I think the last Mortal Kombat game I was able to play without getting queasy was
9.
no, before that DC.
DC, yeah, I was gonna say. Well, that's because that just straight up didn't have gore in it because it was DC.
That makes sense.
And that's another conversation. Like before I get into the story mode of the game, is that people are so obsessed with the violence in Mortal Kombat, which I get, and I think like it shouldn't go away. I personally like it a lot. It hasn't gotten to the point to where it bothers me, but I still understand why it should. There should be an option for people to be able to enjoy it without that. And also with the cutscenes and the story mode should also have some blurs for the gory moments that happen in the cutscenes. But also, like I want another Mortal Kombat vs. DC really bad. But people are so against it because it wouldn't have the gore in it, and it's like another thing about this is some people like Mortal Kombat because, yeah, sure, gore is a big part of personality, but first and foremost, it is a fighting game. Some people just like to play fighting games because the mechanics are fun, and also it has really cool characters, and they like that, but might not like the gore, and those people should have an option to play the game without as much gore or no gore, if possible. And when they cross over with stuff, it is okay for Mortal Kombat to not have gore when they cross over. When it comes to their own games, of course they should have gore. That's the identity of the game. But when they cross over with DC, they don't need gore. And let me tell you something: if they can come up with all these creative ways to murder people, I promise you, they can come up with creative ways to have the villains who do kill people and the heroes who do kill people do like their version of fatalities that isn't bloody. And the ones who don't kill people, like Batman, do their version of fatalities that just doesn't involve murder. They can come up with creative ways to do fatalities that isn't gory. When it comes to making a game that's a crossover with DC, and I'm sure they're going to make another one eventually with how popular Injustice and Mortal Kombat by themselves have been. So them crossing over again just makes sense. But at the same time, I think the powers that be over at NetherRealm do have this weird thing where I feel like they are of the opinion of the gore is necessary, and it's not, and you can have modes that don't need the gore, and because of that, it might be a while before we see another Mortal Kombat vs. DC because they probably don't want to make it if they can't brutally murder these superheroes, which is like, bruh, calm down.
Right, sucks because I really like that game. It's probably my favorite Mortal Kombat, honestly.
Yeah, and every time really a DC character shows in Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat shows up in Injustice, I'm like, I need a whole game of this again.
Please. It's like I'm not even really a fighting games person, but I loved playing that game to pieces because my aunt had it on her PlayStation, and we would play it together. Like that was something that we did together, and that's I think the piece about fighting games that I like the most. It's the playing with someone else, Yeah.
And I think that game didn't do well because of several things. And I think a lot of people say it's because of the gore, because it was the lack of gore, when really it was just the game itself wasn't good mechanically.
Yeah.
Because if Injustice does well and it's a fighting game made by NetherRealm without gore, what makes you think a game with these two extremely popular franchises clashing wouldn't do well? Especially with how much money Mortal Kombat has been making. Oh my God, Mortal Kombat makes so much money. It's one of the highest grossing fighting game franchises out right now. It makes a ridiculous amount of money. Mortal Kombat vs. DC 2 would make so much money.
It would.
But moving on to the story mode. Woo boy. Boy howdy. I'm struggling to comprehend just how bad the Mortal Kombat story was, because it starts so strong. It starts so strong with old characters, and new roles, and you have this new takes on old characters, and you have a mysterious figure trying to turn the now docile villains back into their old selves. And it's very interesting because, Liu Kang became the Keeper of Time. He restarted the timeline, but then he relinquished the powers of being a Keeper of Time and just became essentially the Raiden of the universe, trying to make sure that Mortal Kombat wars don't start or whatever. And it's really cool. And it's a new take on all of these characters in a new world. And then they ruined it immediately. They blew their multiversal load in the first game.
I remember you saying that on Twitter.
Yeah, I forgot you followed me on Twitter. Yeah, I made a whole thread about it. I was upset.
You did. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this on the podcast.
The ending felt like it was straight out of a completely different game. But low-key, a game that would have been dope if it was its own game and not shoved into the last hour. I'm not joking when I say everything I'm about to talk about was in the last hour of a like 10-hour game. It
Oh,
was
yuck.
ridiculous. So there was like at the end you fight like these amalgamations of other characters, um, where they have like multiple movesets from multiple different characters, similar to like in Street Fighter Six, how you can create your own character and that you play through the story mode, you can get moves and from the other Street Fighter characters for your custom
Mhm.
character, and you can also fight other custom characters online. It felt like that, and that's cool. That would be great for its own game, but they just shoved it into the last hour of this one. Like all the ideas that show up in this game are good by themselves, but they they just don't work in this. Like in the DLC of Mortal Kombat 11, Liu Kang and Shang Tsung fought over the hourglass that controls time. You mind if I spoil the story?
No, I don't
Okay,
care.
so spoiler alert for Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 11. So Liu Kang and Shang Tsung fought over the hourglass that controls time, and you could choose who you played as and who got depending on who you played as and one got you got a different ending. But it turns out that both endings are canon. Whereas before it seemed
Oh,
like just Liu Kang's ending was canon. So there's another universe where Shang Tsung won, and he's trying to invade this universe, and that's who the mysterious figure that's trying to turn all the villains who Liu Kang made either docile or good guys back into villains. And the reveal happened like around the last hour point, and then from there on it just went off the rails. And it became this big multiversal story, and I'm talking I'm talking about like Avengers Endgame type stuff. They're trying to shove into the last hour of this game,
uh, oh no.
and I'm like, all of it is like this is so like it's cool on paper, but when I tell you for the last 15 minutes of the game, because if I press the PlayStation button, it tells me how much longer I had. It said 15 minutes, and I was like, good God, that 15 minutes felt like 30. I was like,
Oh, oh
I was like,
man.
please, please just end. What are you doing to me, Mortal Kombat? I'm genuinely, I'm dumbfounded. I'm
Flabbergasted.
flabbergasted, bamboozled. I,
Appalled.
I'm just so confused because you advertise this as the beginning of a new era. You have the opportunity to do all of these new, cool, interesting takes on all these characters, and there's a lot of new, cool, interesting takes of these characters. For example, Ermac, the red ninja.
Right.
He's a collection of a bunch of souls in a body. In this, one of the souls in the body, again, like I said, spoilers. So spoiler again, just in case you didn't catch it the first time. Um, one of the souls in the body is the father of Melina and Katana, and
Oh
the
wow.
husband of Sindel, who always is dead before the story starts in Mortal Kombat games, and he's dead again. He was assassinated, and but his soul was in Ermac, and his soul takes over Ermac. So King Jared is now Ermac, and I'm like, that's a cool, different take on that character. Now you have
Yep.
this Ermac is now he starts off as a villain as the usual evil Ermac, but then King Jared's soul takes over. Now he's a hero, and Ermac is a good guy. Very interesting take on that character. It's dope. It happens really fast though, like kind of unceremoniously, but it was still interesting.
Mhm.
But I now understand why it happened so fast because of that last hour. And it's like
Uh,
they have a lot of really cool ideas that just kind of just get thrown at the wall.
what? Yeah.
Um, and like the idea of like Shang Tsung being like it being two timelines that actually did happen, and Shang Tsung trying to like invade this timeline makes sense. The problem is that should have been revealed. It should have been like Liu Kang and his team defeat the that universe of Shang Tsung, which is trying to being turned evil again to try and take over the universe for the other Shang Tsung. They defeat them, and then at the very end, it's revealed that it was the other Shang Tsung that has his own universe that's trying to invade this universe, and now he has whatever he needs to do so. And next game is going to be them trying to stop that, right?
Right.
Instead of it all happening in the last hour of this game, them defeating him and all of it. It happened in the last hour of this game is very unceremonious. I would have had
So.
that be the second game. And here's where I feel like sometimes, like, I think I'm not, like, I don't have a lot of experience writing because I'm a little afraid of it. But I feel like I have a lot of good ideas that I need to, like, actually start to actually get out properly. Um, but, like, the way I would have done it is, like I said, the second game would have been that instead of the last hour of this game. And also that whole multiversal stuff would not have happened in this game either. All that stuff that happened in the end, what I talk about, that was kind of like Street Fighter 6, that would be
Right.
saved for the third game. Because towards the end of this game, what would happen is the war starts, but after a while they realize nobody, like, it's not helping anyone. And they come to a truce, and they do the thing that Mortal Kombat has always been about. The Mortal Kombat tournament. The Mortal Kombat tournament in the original games it happens because Shao Kahn wants to go around absorbing the different realms and become the king of all of the realms. And to do that, he has to win 10 Mortal Kombat tournaments in a row to invade Earth. And he hasn't been able to do it. So, of course, he forces it eventually and tries to invade anyway. But what you do is, okay, there's this big war because it turns out there actually is multiple, not just Shang Tsung and Liu Kang universes. There's a version of the universe where every single playable Mortal Kombat character took control of the hourglass and they became the keeper of time. So there are at least as many universes as there are playable Mortal Kombat characters.
Which is a lot.
Exactly. So dozens, which is interesting. So instead, it should be like, okay, to make this fair, let's do Mortal Kombat tournament again. This time to decide who gets to invade instead of realms, timelines. So you bring it back to where it all started, Mortal Kombat tournaments, and now you have a reason to have a tournament and have these characters fight again. And now you've established, once again, in this new universe, there's a Mortal Kombat tournament again, but it's different because now it's for the universe, it's for the multiverse, it's for the different timelines. And then in the third game, that's when you bring in the idea of, now that it's multiversal, you create a custom character from one of these universes that fights in the tournament. And then they fight a lot of the amalgam characters that you fought at the end, because the amalgam character is really cool. It was like, I'm talking like Kung Lao combined with Raiden throwing his hat and shooting lightning. It was really cool. But it's like,
Sounds cool.
it was very rushed, and it feels like this is an idea they had for another game that they're like, I don't know what happened. There has to be a really good reason why they did this. And maybe it's because they're working on some other big project that just took priority and kind of forced them to rush this. Because honestly, I'm really confused on why they did it this way. Because the content they showed in this was 3 games worth of content that would have been really cool, like I just described. The second one, they're trying to stop Shang Tsung from invading, and then they established a new tournament. And in the third game, it's a created character that's going through the tournament that you can go around. And like Street Fighter 6, it can be like you explore areas in like an open world third person setting. Because that's something that they've done in these Mortal Kombat games. They have this thing called the Crypt, where you can explore a area walking around in third person. In the Mortal Kombat X, it was first person, but in 11, it was third person. So being able to do that, but similar to Street Fighter 6, which Street Fighter 6's story mode is actually inspired by something that Mortal Kombat did back in the 3D era, where they had something similar but not as advanced as what Street Fighter 6 has. But in Street Fighter 6, you can walk up to anybody in the street and just fight them. So if legit, it's hilarious. So if they did that, but for a Mortal Kombat game, like with the third game, like took inspiration from Street Fighter 6, it would have been dope. And I'm like, it's like I'm even struggling right now to explain all the ideas I have, because I'm like, I can see so many different directions this could have went, other than the horrible one that it did. Because the story, honestly, the first half of the story is amazing, and then it nosedives. I guess at least the gameplay is good. Because at the end of the day, it's a fighting game, and it's gonna live and die based on that, and how good it is beyond that. But for a person like me who plays these games mostly for the story, it's just disappointing. It's so sad. There also is no good justification for making. I don't know if I told you this, but like Scorpion in this isn't Hanzo Hasashi. It's Kuai Liang, who is the second Sub-Zero. After Bihan dies and becomes Noob Saibot, Kuai Liang becomes Sub-Zero. And instead, what they did was make him Scorpion, and they're brothers.
Right.
And what's interesting, that is something that should have came up later in the second game, is that Bihan, of course, becomes evil because that's just his thing. And what's happening now is that usually the what do they call it? What is their clan? The Lin Kuei, the Sub-Zero's clan, is an offshoot of the Shirai Ryu, which is Scorpion's clan. A member of the Shirai Ryu leaves that clan and goes in and creates the I just said their name. What did I say?
I don't remember.
Lin Kuei. Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm confusing Kuai Liang and Lin Kuei. The Lin Kuei. But in this one, it's the other way around, because the Bihan, the evil Sub-Zero, took over the Lin Kuei and made them evil again. Scorpion, who is Kuai Liang goes off and creates the Shirai Ryu, which is interesting and a different take on that. Again, another interesting, different take on characters in the universe, but the way they do, like everything surrounding it, is just weird. I really wanted to like this story so bad because the last stories have been good. They've been flawed, but ultimately it's just been really dumb, fun action movies. Whereas this one is not a dumb, fun action movie for me. It's just a bad action. Well, actually, the reason it's bad is because it's good. It's more than just a dumb, fun action movie at the beginning. It's a generally really good action movie. There's this whole scene where you play as Johnny Cage as he's filming basically an Indiana Jones ripoff, and you just straight up play the movie. Like you go through the cutscenes and then you fight the monsters that he fights in the movie. It's really cool. And then they go cut and show a cutscene. They're like, oh, it's all a movie, which was obvious from the beginning because it's shot for shot Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it's really cool. Like it's a legitimately really good like story, and then it just gets horrible. It's so disappointing. That's all.
Disappointing.
I had to go on that rant. I can't believe it. Truly.
You're real. You're real.
Like I really thought this would just be such a slam dunk. You know, I'm glad I played it. It was fun because, like I said, the story was good for a while, and the gameplay is fun. Ultimately, I'm gonna have fun playing this with friends and online at least, and I'm excited for the DLC character. So
right.
At least that part's good. At least the actual combat part of Mortal Kombat is fun. F the story isn't. And you know they set up some stuff for the future that I'm just like, okay, I guess this should have been the fourth game, but sure. I'm so upset. It's very disappointing. If you watch like some YouTube video of someone playing story mode, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's honestly insane. I can't believe it.
Also, I heard the Switch port sucked.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
There's literally faces don't move.
Yeah, I saw.
It's crazy. That game should not have been on Switch.
Yeah.
They did it because Mortal Kombat 11 sold really, really well on Switch. Mm-hmm. That's why, despite every other version of this game being next-gen exclusive, this one is on Switch. Maybe the whatever the next console is version will be better.
I hope so.
Like that port will be better. We'll see. If they even feel like putting in the time to change it, which they might.
Right.
Not. I hope the next game they make is not Mortal Kombat. Or if it is Mortal Kombat, like it's because they're doing something new, like a new Shaolin Monks, which was like a God of War type game. Like
right.
if the story was bad because they were doing that and that has a good story, then I'm like, okay, you know what?
I forgive it.
I forgive you. But if it's because you're just making another fighting game, if it's DC versus Mortal Kombat, I'll forgive you. But if it's just Injustice or another Mortal Kombat, I'll be upset. It has to be something different and really good.
Real.
But yeah, that's all I have.
That's all I've got too.
You know, you find my ads below me. Aiara's at below them. Muscara's at below that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content. And to click the notification bell so you're notified when we post. Peace.
See y'all.